Welcome, listeners, to www.ironradio.org, the website and podcast for all things strength sports and sports nutrition. With your hosts, Lonnie Lowery.
Remember, Phil is like a gnarled old oak tree held together with scar tissue and bone spurs.
Rob Fortney.
And I'm telling you, the pain that I would suffer was beyond excruciating.
And Phil Stevens.
Do it, Rob. You'll kill all those nerves.
Thanks for listening.
Welcome, Iron Radio listeners. This is Lonnie Lowery. I'm a professor of nutrition and exercise physiology. I've done that for about 20 years, and I'm a former competitive bodybuilder.
Hey, this is Phil Stevens. I run Strength Guild. I'm a strength coach. In powerlifting, Highland Games, and just generally like picking up big things. So.
Nice. Okay, everybody, we are going to have a topic today. We cut to the chase at the beginning here, like a good boy, good co-host. What are you good at? What are you bad at? And how do you know? That's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to share some thoughts about ourselves, and maybe those are instructive if you are like us. And we're going to do this by category. So we'll do it like physique, performance, diet, right? What do we feel like we're good at? How do we know? What are we bad at? How do we know we're bad at these things? And then we'll try to toss in some advice for people that might be like us. But the whole idea is, as a listener, to be engaged, right? And think about yourself when we talk about what are you good at in the gym, that sort of thing. But I digress. We have mail and news, so we got to get to this as is our thing.
Strength and muscle sport news.
This first mail is from Mike. He sent this maybe a week or two ago. We're just getting to it. Could we have a little bit of a backlog here? But my name's Michael. I'm a longtime listener. I used to weigh 350 pounds back in 2014. Down to about 240 to 250 now. So well done, man. Mm-hmm. And while I'm still big, I've been competing in powerlifting and have made tremendous gains in the last 5 years. I'm currently cutting down even further to around 200. Good Lord. And trying to get as lean as I have ever been as an adult. Anyway, I came across this post on Reddit, and I thought it was a very interesting read. I thought I'd share it for your news portion of the show. And I'll get to this in just a moment. He has a question about it. My question with caffeine is there too much that you can take, essentially? I usually drink 1 to 2 sugar-free Red Bulls a day and a scoop of pre-workout. So, Mike's not afraid of bringing on the stimulants here. While I have been trying to cut out Red Bulls in general and just do black coffee instead, and, sidebar, I like that idea, actually, but I drink a lot of caffeine per day. My tolerance is high, but I've been doing this for years now without cycling off. Are there side effects? I just had my blood pressure checked at age 30 and about 250 pounds. I'm 115/65, so nice low blood pressure. Mm-hmm. Doc said I'm healthy. Should I have anything to worry about? Last time I cycled off for a month, it seemed to really work again, the caffeine, when I kicked it back in. But after the second day, I was already back to normal with basically the tolerance. And then lastly, do you know any kind of effects between caffeine and weed? Is combining them a good thing or a bad thing? Or are there no studies to show it, etc.? He says, I'm in Canada, so it's legal. Thanks for everything you guys do. All right. Oh, well, Mike, I'll answer the caffeine part. I did look at the article. It was by Eric Trexler. It's a nice little piece. It's not exactly peer-reviewed, science article, but there's peer-reviewed stuff in it. So this is not unlike, Phil, like what we used to see or do on T-Nation, back in the day where they actually had references and there were little literature reviews, sort of. So, yeah, the piece that he's referring to is really pretty good. As far as getting blunted and is it healthy and this and that sort of thing, I would consider what you're consuming a lot. Average people usually consume around 200 milligrams a day-ish. I'm not looking that up right now. I'm just ballparking. And you're way above that, of course. Now, there's a couple of things you got to think about, though. The enzymes that break down caffeine in your liver, they do get excited when you exercise. So exercise does burn through some of it. That's sort of a incorrect way of saying it, but it is still more or less true. Like if you take a lot of pre-workout and then you train your ass off in the afternoon, you're probably still going to get to sleep decently. Whereas if you did a lot of caffeine in the afternoon and did not lift, you might have trouble. That kind of thing. Blood pressure, the literature goes back and forth. You're not alone. A lot of people just think it's going to jack your heart rate and blood pressure sky high, and that's not always the case in the literature. So, if your blood pressure's good, especially you're a big dude, roll with it, man. I mean, that sounds okay. As far as can you get too much? Yes. At some point, in fact, we know from the science it's about 5 or 6 milligrams per kg of your body weight, right? So you're 250 pounds, divide that by 2.2, get your weight in kilos, and then multiply that by up to 6 milligrams. 6 mgs per kg is usually the higher end. That's a good whopping dose, especially because you're a pretty big guy, and 6 mgs per kg for you is a lot. I mean, that's a lot. You're not going to do that with coffee alone unless you drink a pot. So, exercise will do that. Eating a lot of protein and broccoli and things like that tend to cause caffeine to break down because, again, they affect these liver enzymes and whatnot. So you may be doing some other things that help get it out of your system fairly quickly. What else was I going to look at here? Cycling on and off. We actually looked at that in the lab, and in a peer-reviewed setting, we presented this stuff, but essentially you get blunted but not completely ruined on caffeine by regular use. And that should be obvious to any listener, right? I mean, why do we all drink coffee or tea every morning? Because it keeps getting your ass out of bed. So in a nutshell, if you want numbers, there was an 11% enhancement in like bar speed, with a fairly light to medium weight when we were looking at this stuff in caffeine-naive people, so 11% ergogenic effect, and in caffeine-habituated people, it was 6%. But that was still statistically significant. It was still a reliable enhancement. It was just about a 6 to 8%, actually, instead of 11. So blunted but not abolished. So, on the alertness side, if you don't feel completely wired, well, that's all right. I honestly think at some point there's diminishing returns. Like you overdo it. Like, let's say you slam 2 Red Bulls immediately and then, put some pre-workout powder in one of them. I don't suggest that. Don't do that. But that would be too much. And then, you might feel more mentally alert, but at some point, and it's right around, at least in our lab, the stuff we've done, it's around that 5 milligrams per kg. You might feel more wired, but the bar speed isn't going any faster. You just think it is, right?
Yeah.
So, you're like, woo, and I'm really rocking. Well, you're rocking about the same as you would have with half the dose. So, as far as actual bar speed. And then the combo with weed, I've never seen anything about cannabinoids or smoking pot and how it would interact with caffeine. Caffeine has some analgesic effects, actually. It's not just like a adrenaline type surge. There's a lot of phytochemicals. I mean, God, in both of those, right? Talk about the plant chemicals in both of those substances. The interactions would be enormous, and I would bet there's a lot of inter-individual differences there. I don't know. Any thoughts, Phil, about overdoing caffeine? Have you ever done it, or anything? Somebody like weed, any of the above?
I can just tell you the one time I decided to go ahead and take the 6 milligrams per kilogram of body weight, and it was way too much. Because we were talking about it on the show. I was like, give it a shot this morning. And so I don't know, I was like 720 grams of caffeine before I worked out, and that was way too much. I was like you said. I mean, I was up. I was way up, and it gets to, for me, it's like back in the days of ephedra and stuff like that. That stuff was good as far as like losing weight, but for heavy training, not so much. I mean, I have a tendency to get myself up anyways for big lifts.
Yep.
And I was too shaky, and at a point when you're talking 90% plus lifts and shaky, they don't go well together. Just being too lit up. I mean, I've kind of curbed back my caffeine lately. I mean, I use it. This morning I'm drinking more coffee, and I'll have some more caffeine before I go in. But I try not to live on it now. Where for a while there, I was like coffee all day, every day. And That was just a personal choice. I mean, I don't see a big difference in it now, but I mean, it was just I think my sleep might be a little better, things like that. So
yeah, actually, that's good advice, Mike. You can overdo it. I mean, if you want this to maximally, stimulate you, or at least optimally, maybe is a better word, not maximally, because then, like Phil said, you're weak and shaky and overdone, but don't do it all the time. Like, I actually questioned a little bit why you're doing the 2 Red Bulls. Maybe you could cut that to 1 and make the other one just a pop for a while. Mm-hmm. Some kind of sugar-free pop instead. I mean, there's still a little dab of caffeine in most pop, but you're talking about almost for workout purposes, a useless amount, 30 to 50 milligrams or something. But you might want to try that, because that way you're not just leaning on it so heavily. You know what I mean? Think of it like lighter fluid. If you're going to spray it on the flame, don't do it all the time. So
yeah, that's like the people that take the crazy pre-workouts, like Charm Day pre-workout, bro. You're doing some curls,
right? Yes.
If you can't mentally get yourself through that workout, we might want to address some issues.
Yeah,
but
that's for sure.
That's like I save my big caffeine intake for Saturdays, and that's when I do all my deadlifting and my heavy squatting. So.
There's the risk of a crutch, though. You know what I mean?
Yes.
The way you blare metal, like I do it with headphones.
Yeah.
You do it with the big speakers and whatnot in your gym. And I mean, my gym does that too. I just tend to like to listen to my own stuff. But,
yes.
But to your point, yeah, I mean, there's chemical motivation, but you can actually drum up your psyche to get into it without it.
Yes.
So.
Yep.
Okay. We have 2 little bits of news before we get to the mid-show break, and then our topic about what we're good and bad at, and listeners too. Both of these are dose-related things that often come up in sports nutrition and lifting. So this first one, both of them are from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. This is from the American Society of Nutrition, the ASN. This is a challenging society. Like, there's a lot of dietitians, for example, that don't even qualify to get in. I mean, you have to have first author publications. I mean, there's an application process. But this is my group. So think about this as like these are the PhDs and the MDs. And yes, there are some dietitians in the mix, but this is high-end group. It's the most impactful nutrition journal, like, in the world. So anyway, new stuff, brand new, like literally this morning. This first one, linear dose response of EPA and DHA. So we're talking about fish oils, of course. Results from a randomized controlled trial in healthy humans. What they wanted to do is actually look at how much can you take, and does it keep getting absorbed and incorporated into your body and causing benefits, right? So it says the health effects of long-chain omega-3 polyunsaturated fats, right, PUFA, omega-3 PUFA, polyunsaturated fatty acids, are partly mediated by their oxidized metabolites, eicosanoids, and other oxylipins. So just fancy names for what the fish oil, the EPA, and DHA become in your body. Okay. So what they did was, let's see. The aim of the study was to quantify these oxylipins, again, what the fish oils become in your body, in human plasma samples from an intervention study where the participants were randomly assigned different daily intakes of EPA and DHA over the course of a year. Healthy adult men and women. So this is nice, right? It's not diseased people. It's not just males. Healthy men and women with low habitual fish intake. And that should make sense because otherwise they would have quite a bit in their bodies already. 121 subjects were randomly assigned to receive capsules giving a dose of omega-3 fats reflecting 3 different patterns of fish intake. 1 serving per week, 2 servings per week, or 4 servings per week. And what they mean by that was 3.3, essentially, grams of EPA and DHA in a serving. So this adds up to something about 14 grams a week, as I'm just quickly looking at this. So if you divide that by 7 days, up to 2 grams a day. And actually, that's right about where I shoot with my supplements when I take them. 2,000 total milligrams, between 1,000 and 2,000 of EPA and DHA, the active ingredients in a fish oil pill. And then, of course, they quantified these metabolites in the plasma after 3 months and 12 months. So let me cut to the chase here. Plasma concentrations of biologically active oxylipins that were derived from the omega-3 supplements increased linearly with elevated intake of EPA and DHA. In other words, it just kept going up and up. And this is actually, over the years of Iron Radio, this is what I've suggested, that I keep seeing in the literature. You could take more and more fish oils, and there's sort of this dose-response effect. You really do get more of it into your body, and you get more of these metabolites. Now, unfortunately, we both know, Phil, in powerlifting and bodybuilding, a more is better mentality is not always good. You know, whether it's people taking too much androgens right out of the gate, or we just talked about caffeine, right? You can overdo it. So at some point, having more of these metabolites, it could end up backfiring in some ways. It could affect blood clotting or, different kinds of things. Not causing clotting, but preventing. There's a couple of different minor potential problems. There's some talk about maybe prostate issues with different polyunsaturated fats. And it says inter-individual differences as far as their plasma levels are low. There's not much difference. In other words, it's a pretty linear effect. The more you take, the more you get in, regardless of who you are. So I thought that was pretty interesting stuff there as far as the dose response. And again, they were shooting for intake patterns, right? They're trying to make it mirror food. 1 serving a week, 2 servings a week, or 4 servings per week. Again, about 3.3 gram EPA plus DHA servings. So that tells me that, if you do supplement this stuff, it does get in. If you take more gets in. Whether it's for antidepressive effects, anti-inflammatory. There's some body comp studies to suggest that less body fat over periods of time when you're training. So I guess practical tip, I'm just going to keep taking my roughly 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams of combined EPA and DHA every day, and I'm going to know that dose, it still gets in. I mean, this was linear, so in theory I could double that and it would still get in. But at some point, like anything else, I think you might be overdoing it. Most benefits of fish oil start around half a gram a day, so about 500 milligrams. So I'm taking 1,000 to 2,000. That's a lot. Yeah. That's a lot. So dose response. This next one, Phil, I'm very curious to hear what your people say, because there's a lot of people in the bodybuilding community. I think Stan Efferding is one. There's a lot of people. I think we've had Stan on the show, in fact, in the past. But they're big proponents of sodium. And this would actually back them up in a way, not in the sense that it's performance enhancing. Like I was listening to a kid the other day talking about how sodium is so ergogenic, and I'm like, according to Stan Efferding, and I'm like, I'm not sure it's going to like put 40 pounds on your bench press or something like that. But dose response relationship between sodium and blood pressure. So they did a meta-regression here, a meta-analysis. Now, it's worth noting that there's a lot of classic textbooks that say only about a third to a half of the population is sodium sensitive at all. In other words, you could have high blood pressure, and pulling sodium out of your diet won't help you, right? So that's something most people don't think about, that only a third to a half of the population is probably sodium sensitive. But anyway, the present meta-regression sought to estimate the dose response between sodium restriction and blood pressure. They found 133 papers on this, randomized controlled trials, looking at healthy and hypertensive individuals. I don't want to bore you with a ton of this, but essentially, in people that were in the upper echelons of blood pressure, so blood pressure of basically 130 over 80. So almost mildly hypertensive, not diagnostically so probably, but if you're in the upper 75th percentile and your blood pressure is roughly 130 over 78, actually, it says there was strong evidence for a linear effect. In other words, you could drop your systolic blood pressure by about 8 millimeters of mercury and your diastolic by about 3 millimeters. So you could get 8 points off your top number, about 3 points off your lower number, that's worthwhile. But again, only if you're pushing mild hypertension. This is the interesting thing. In the study groups with mean blood pressure that was under that amount, so, let's say, like we just talked about with our listener mail, if you're like 115/68 or something like that, it's already low. Sodium's not going to do much. It says the relationship between sodium and blood pressure for people with lower blood pressures to begin with was weak. For systolic blood pressure, cutting out sodium reduced it by just 1.5 millimeters of mercury, and diastolic was less than 0.1 millimeter reduction.
Wow.
So it just didn't do anything, really. And then their conclusion was only study groups with a blood pressure in the highest 25th percentile of the population showed clinically significant drop in blood pressure with sodium restriction. And they actually go on to say that dietary guidelines for sodium need to be reframed just to target the patients that already have hypertension, right? In other words, telling everybody not to do it, at least from a blood pressure perspective, is kind of a waste of time.
I would like to see a cross study on that too, of how many of those people with high blood pressure are physically active.
Yeah, that's true.
Because, it makes a big difference. If you're basically, people like us are losing sodium every time we train in large amounts. And athletes, so it'd be interesting to see if these people that had high blood pressure and also weren't very active, and cramming down lots of sodium, and then they changed it to no sodium. Yeah, of course. Well, now, they weren't losing it before, so they're losing it now via not taking it in. So
it's true. There's
cross reference.
Anytime in physiology, right. The point you're making about population specificity is bang on. All you have to do is look at my ball caps in the back seat of my car, and they've got salt lines all over them.
Yeah, well, like me, for instance. I had my blood test not long ago, and I was low, pre-hypertensive or whatever it was, and I am a huge sodium eater.
Yeah,
I take in lots of sodium. My sodium levels were fine. I didn't change that at all, and now I'm 110/67 or whatever it is. And I take in lots of sodium still. So
yeah, I think body weight is a bigger deal. I don't know how you are, but if I get up over 215, and because that's heavier for me, if I go over 215, I start getting mild hypertension, like we just talked about, hovering around 130, 135 over 85 kind of thing. And when my body weight is under 200, I'm 115/68 again.
Exactly.
So weight has a huge impact, and it's a good point. Anytime in physiology, it's always rate of appearance and rate of disappearance, right? And if we're making sodium disappear from our system by sweating our asses off, especially this time of year, you got to think that then there's the issue of sodium balance here, and it's not just intake like with a lot of folks, So. Anyway, I thought that was interesting, that if your blood pressure is kind of low, especially if you remember last year we were talking about how there were some NASA studies that suggested that sodium increases appetite. Well, I think, hot damn, that's one of the best things best reasons for eating some salty foods, right? If it's going to make you hungrier and you're trying to gain weight, it's almost like along the lines of your McDonald's chicken sandwich diet, right? There's lots of calories and sodium, which makes you hungrier to eat more, and that's the idea. That's actually the idea. So, only a problem if you're sensitive and already sort of hypertensive, and that's interesting. Okay, let's go to break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what we're good at, and we're going to pose that to you guys, right, listeners? What are you good at? What are you bad at? And how do you know? Hey listeners, this is Dr. Lonnie Lowry. If you've ever had anyone critique you on your protein intake as part of your weightlifting lifestyle, oh, you poor meathead, all that extra protein is going to rot your kidneys or weaken your bones or dehydrate you or give you gout or who knows what. There is a book available. You could simply Google CRC Press and Lowry. And what I've done is reach out to experts all over the world and create a book, a single compendium that you can hold up and say, this is why I consume extra protein. This can be very valuable when you're being quote-unquote educated
by various professionals on the topic. There's an enormous amount of literature in this book on the safety, the effectiveness, how protein works in cells, the history of protein and weight trainers, much more. So again, please check out CRC Press and Protein and Lowry. You can just Google that. And I do, full disclosure, I do make a small single-digit royalty on the book, but that's not why I did it. I did it so we can all have something, our particular population, to both defend what we do and to inform our nutrition and our eating. Thanks. Iron Radio is, of course, primarily a podcast. But over the years, there have been technical glitches calling for backup streaming and listeners who wanted the convenience of other sources of audio content. Toward this end, Iron Radio is now simulcast and backed up on YouTube. If needed, please search Lawnman07 or Iron Radio from within YouTube. There's not much video, but if you like to listen through YouTube on a Roku or other living room device, there you go.
Like your weekly fix of Iron Radio? In addition to being a popular institute on iTunes, we are also on email. Simply go to www.ironradio.org and sign up for the voluntary email. You'll get a once per week email, no more. That's little more than the show notes and a link to the audio. So go for it.
Alrighty, it's Phil and Lonnie, and we're back, and we're going to talk today about what we're good and bad at, and how we know, and what advice we might have. And then, of course, the idea here is, right, make the leap. This is about you, the listener. We want you to think about what you're good at. What are you bad at? How do you know? That sort of thing. And we're going to do it by category. So our first category is physique. So let's start with, on a positive note, Phil. What are you good at physique-wise? Not performance, but just build. What are you good at, and how do you know that?
My back. It's probably because, my back or my chest. And that's just natural. My chest is definitely natural, and my back is just all the training I've done. Those are two things I get comments on. So, and it's nothing, I don't even cognitively try. It's just the nature of the training I do. And I think I lucked into, I've always enjoyed training back. So I think I lucked into that. And it just so happened that's a big part of the sports I do.
Sure.
So I think that's one of the reasons why I've never hurt my back, is because I have a big, strong back. And I've always just enjoyed, when it came down to it, I much more enjoyed heavy bent over rows than I did a bunch of bench pressing and things like that. That'd probably be the biggest thing for me is that vascularity, but that's, again, I was just born to the correct parents.
Vascular,
so,
yeah.
So,
well, let me drill down. This sounds very bodybuilder-ish, but when you say back, are you lats dominant or more traps?
Definitely lats.
Lats.
My traps they're not like windlers that go up to my ears.
Yeah.
And they never have been.
Yeah.
I just got really wide lats and things like that. That's usually what I get a comment on is, holy crap, you've got huge lats. And it's just I'm wide. I'm really wide and thick. It's just how I'm built. I've got a big rib cage. So my chest is always just big. The minute I put on any weight, it comes to my chest first. So I just start getting thicker, and it's I got to go through doors sideways. But it's just how I've always been. And even when I was small, I always just had a big rib cage and things like that. So I'm just lucky in that way. And then, of course, that kind of geared my training towards that. I think we tend to lean on what we're good at. So
right, yeah. Yeah, and how you know that is obvious. People are making comments about it, and you can,
yeah, exactly.
You can't put on a shirt.
Yeah, they're like, "Good Lord, your chest is huge, or your lats, you got a huge back." Blah blah blah.
Right,
so,
right. I think from my perspective, physique-wise, I had small joints, and that might sound like a weakness to a power lifter, but in my sport, that's very helpful. In what I always did. So small joints. In relatively big muscle bellies, right? So I could look like I weighed more And we always talk about the illusion on a stage and that kind of stuff. So I'd compete I was only in the upper 190s, after I dehydrated and everything, and or the fact that I think I was bottom heavy. Like my whole family is bottom heavy, big quads and hams. And as I get older, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but it seems like to me that older guys, they lose some leg mass. So my physique has been balancing out actually, because I used to be so bottom heavy. And, like you with your back work and the performance, that's why I always liked squats as far as like a performance move, because, I had bigger butt and legs. I just always did, and how I know that, I guess it's just through competing and whatnot, right? Because I could stand on stage and some of the guys were shorter than me, and therefore they had more mass per inch of height, but they didn't always necessarily look that much bigger. You know what I'm talking about. Like there were some bodybuilders that were like that throughout history, and they just had they had a balanced look, and they looked a little bigger when you find out they only weigh a certain amount, Let's talk about bad. So this is kind of the fun part. Like physique-wise, what's bad about you, and how do you know?
Oh man, definitely my arms and legs. And I know this because they're 7 feet long. I've always had I've got a short trunk that is, again, thick, short, and powerful. I've got these long, gangly arms and legs, which even if they're kind of big, makes them appear really small. So,
okay. Yeah.
And I'd say if I had to pick one, I'd say arms. And that's just because I don't care.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I've tried to care about, okay, I'm going to do a bunch of curls, and it doesn't work, and it bores the hell out of me. I still do them, but it's definitely just I should do this. Let me do 50 curls. So it's definitely a back burner thing, and it goes into, is doing an hour of curls really going to aid my performance at all? Nah, probably not. Okay, I'm not going to do it. I've only got so much time.
Yeah.
And I know that, and let's say in powerlifting, I know that, okay, we've got 3 lifts to do, squat, bench, deadlift. Yeah, there's some arm work involved in bench, but how much is that going to affect my total compared to more time doing stuff that will affect my squat and deadlift? Probably not as much.
Sure.
So, it'd definitely be, my limbs in and of themselves, but definitely my biceps. It bores the hell out of me doing curls and stuff. I still do them, and I probably need to do them more.
Just out of curiosity, you were talking about how long they are, and it's almost an illusion in a bad way in this case. Mm-hmm. How big are your arms? Do you have 18, 19 inch arms?
Last time I checked, probably 17, 18, something like that.
Okay,
But like I said, my arms, they go from my shoulders to my knees, and I'm 6 foot.
Right. Right. So,
So no matter what, they don't look that big. I'd have to have like 20 some inch arms to be like, oh yeah, he's got some big arms. And I hear that all the time, like people that don't know anything about powerlifting and stuff like that. Well, how can he be so strong? His arms aren't that big.
Yeah,
because I don't have to use them to deadlift. Right. I just got to hang on to the bar.
Exactly. It's not a prime mover.
Yeah. And you could argue that for benching, and maybe my bench would go up more again if I did a little bit more, because they help bracing and things like that. But part of it's also in that my shoulder hurts, so I just don't do a lot of benching. So I basically get most of my arm work through all the, like yesterday I had a bunch of bent over rows and pull ups and pull downs and things like that. It's like my arm's bending and they're definitely working.
Right.
So I just don't have a lot of time for direct arm work. Now, if I ever wanted to step on stage or something, that would be what I definitely have to attack. And then my legs, they used to be a lot more impressive than they are, but for some reason having a hip surgery and a hamstring replacement tends to make them shrink up some.
Sure.
So
but
they're strong. Arguably my legs are stronger than they've ever been, even though they're not as big as they've ever been.
Interesting.
So that's definitely my weak areas.
Yeah, I hear you about the surgery thing. When I had my right triceps reattached, my right arm is slightly smaller than my left now. I think it just, I don't know, it hurt the size of it just a little bit when I had that. I don't know if that's always true. Probably not, but often. No, I hear you. Because I'm only 5'9". When I competed, Not on stage, but in the off season, my arms were around 19 inches. My thighs were. I got my thighs up near 28 inches at one point, and on my frame, that's a lot. That was almost as big as my waist. But again, that's off season when I'm all bloated and everything. But let's get to advice. So, what about other lifters? If they're listening, they're like, "Yeah, I've got long arms. I'm a spider." What's Phil's advice for them then?
Find out if you even care.
Okay. Yeah. No.
Does it really matter to you? I mean, if it doesn't matter, like for me, I really don't care. And other people, I don't care if you have bigger arms than me. It has no meaning to my
value.
Purpose in life. Yeah, it holds no value. So I've gotten to the point I don't care. If it was hindering my performance somehow, then I would care more. So, other than that, I mean, attack your weaknesses. It's easier for me to speak on the next one we'll do, which would be performance.
Sure.
As far as that, but like anybody, we talked about, you only have so much time in a day, and so you need to find out where your value structure is and attack that. If bigger arms to me really held a high value, I would find a way to make them bigger.
Yep.
And I would spend time on that.
Yep.
So it's just finding out personally what you want and if you care about it, and if so, attack that. So
yep.
Add 3 or 4 days, for a while and see what happens.
Exactly, yeah.
So.
It's funny you're talking about value, because I don't want to get into our next section on performance too much yet, but I was actually like that. This shows how different we are, but with the deadlift, I never focused on it much. I never had a big deadlift because I really never did it. And there's a reason for that, right? But I digress. As far as my advice for people with small joints, because yes, it can be a good thing, but it's also my bad thing, right? So I would suggest, if you do have small joints, don't make some of the mistakes that I made, like you doing real heavy isolation work. Like that's how I tore my triceps. I should not have 150 pounds on an easy curl bar doing skull crushers. It's not necessary. So you got to be careful with the isolation work, right? Because you just don't have the bone structure and the thicker, larger tendons and everything else to shoulder that load. And it could catch up with you. I'm telling you. Yeah,
and then there's things like you touched upon. You have really long muscle bellies. I'm the opposite. I have really long tendons. I remember the old test from back in the days where they place your fingers between your elbow joint and your bicep when you flex, and how many fingers can you fit? And people with really long muscle bellies can fit one or none.
Yes. Yes.
And I can fit 3.
Okay.
I have really long tendons.
Yeah.
Which makes you have more of a peak thing going on, I suppose, because the muscle starts so late.
Sure.
But I just wasn't genetically predisposed to even have the look of big arms. Yeah. So I was why am I going to fight this when I can go towards something I like? So,
a lot of today's episode reminds me of that old quote. It says something along the lines of, that thing you're not good at? Yeah, don't do that. Right? Because otherwise it's an exercise in frustration. I'm not.
Yeah, it is.
Nobody is saying don't work your weak spots, but only if you value that weak spot.
That's definitely what I find. If you get people that actually sit down and ID what they actually enjoy, and you start them working on that, they will work a lot harder than what they've thought they. There's a lot of people in this world spending a lot of time on shit they really don't care about and they really don't like, and they half-ass it, because they've never taken the time to ID what do I really like. And that's kind of what we try to do in the gym, is we take you in, we let you try everything, and then you tell me, hey, I like this. Well, why don't we concentrate on that? Because you'll probably work a lot harder if you're doing something you enjoy instead of doing that.
Yep. Phil, that's even when I work with weight management clients, now not like contest prep, but we focus on strength and something that they're naturally good at, they're proud of, or they're I'm like, hey, you're pretty good at that, because it's positive. They make gains and it reinforces. And if you focus on body composition out of the gate and fat loss, the changes are too slow and it's very demoralizing. You know, so a kind of similar thing. Okay, let's get to our next major category here, because obviously your physique feeds into this, I think, but is performance. So good and bad, and how you know. What are you good at?
My squat and my deadlift are good.
Mm-hmm.
My bench sucks.
Okay.
And I just know that now it used to be, my bench was okay, my squat was okay, and my deadlift was really good. What happened is after my hip replacement, I had concentrated on my deadlift so long because it was the one thing I could do that just did not put me in excruciating pain. So of course I did it a lot, and I've always been just naturally good at deadlifting. I'm one of those people, like they interviewed Derek Poundstone, like, what'd you deadlift for the first time? He's like 500 pounds when I was like 12.
Yeah.
I walked into the gym and I could just deadlift well.
Yeah.
From day one. So of course I concentrate on that.
Long arms, right? That's got to help.
Yeah. Long arms, long legs.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just naturally good at it. So of course I did it a lot. And then, so what happens when you do something a lot and you enjoy it? You get better at it. So I naturally just got better at that. And then the squat was kind of my back burner exercise for a few reasons, the hip, and then also just big, long legs.
Yes.
But after my hip replacement, it was when I decided hey, I'm out of pain. I want to push this thing for the first time. So I've gotten myself up to over 700 pounds. I hit 705 for a double, pretty easy on squat. And put the deadlift on back burner because I know, I've done 3 meets since, and I've always pulled 700 in there.
It's there.
Like without really concentrating on my deadlift, I know it's there.
Yeah.
I kind of know if I go into a meet, I'm going to pull 7. And now that my squat's up there, now I'm trying to concentrate and split time. So I'm spending about 50% of my time on my squat, 50% on my, because I want them both to go up.
Mm-hmm.
So, those are definitely my good ones. My lower body stuff. And I don't know, man. For me, it's really easy to get like we talked about before in the caffeine part of the show. Mentally, I can get really hyped up for a big squat or a big deadlift. It's real hard for me to get mentally hyped up the bench. It's like, really, I'm just laying down here and pushing a bar up and
I
down.
get it, man. You know what? These guys that are bench specialists, and we've had some on the show, I've always thought that in the back of my mind, too. Nothing from them because they're really good at it. But there seems to be, and again, I might get some hate mail for this, but less at stake in a bench press, compared to a squat, which is inherently dangerous, Like I don't know. I always had a hard time too, like getting mentally super, like 2 days ahead, looking forward to a bench workout. Yeah, I'll get a big pump, but I don't know.
Yeah, and I love the feeling of that. Like on bench, getting a big pump and your chest is all blown up. It feels, but it's not the same as, holy shit, I might die. I'm about to take 700 out and I'm about to sit down with it.
That's right. Yeah, right.
And there is something very primal about that. So, other than that, performance-wise, like I'm probably more of a one-show pony now than I've ever been. And a lot of that is because, like we talked about, I know what I like, I know what I'm good at, so I've really concentrated on that. Like, I'm not very good at endurance stuff now. And part of that, it got exasperated, of course, after my hip replacement when the doctor, gave me the one diagnosis that I was wanting to hear my whole life and that I can't never run again.
Right. That's a tragedy for other people.
Yeah, it's a tragedy, but I was like, yes. He told me I can never run unless I'm on a building on fire. So I stay away from buildings on fire. But I just, and that further gave me the excuse to, I don't like that, I'm not going to do it. You know? And so I'll go push a sled, I'll go ride my bike, and it's, I do stuff, but I've just really sold myself to, hey, I'm a lifter. I'm going to lift, and that's what I like.
I know a lot of kids, Phil, actually, that are into powerlifting, and almost none of them like to jog. They all look for other ways to get their conditioning, sleds or almost anything else, so.
Yep.
What about advice? So you said the bench press, which is kind of ironic, right? I know your arms are long, and that's probably the weak link, because you have a big chest, but your bench isn't your best. But what would be your advice for someone who's built like you, or their bench is by far and away a distant third in their big three? Yeah,
if they're built like me, it's all a lockout. Like, I can get a weight moving, and it's because I've got a big torso and long arms. So generally, with people with long arms, are the people that I'll get the bar halfway up. It's the lockout that kills me.
Yeah,
it's when those arms hit. When I go from, I'm really wound up when I touch my chest because my elbows are way back behind me.
Mm-hmm.
So I get about halfway up, and that's where my arms hit 90 degrees. And of course, that's going to be just from a lever arm
Leverage,
standpoint.
yeah.
That's going to be that's going to be the hardest part. That's a lot of lockout strength and things like that. And I tell you, my bench sucks. I've still benched like 430, but comparatively against competitors, I suck. So
yeah.
And my shoulder injury has just also made it to where, like, if I ever want to bench 430 again, I probably need surgery, and it's not worth it to me. But a couple things. Build up your weakness. Like, for me, it'd be a ton of tricep work. And also, I don't know why more people don't attack their strength. Like, for me, I know I'm strong in the bottom. So if I get even stronger in the bottom, it tends to let me blast through that weak
Right.
point.
Momentum. Right. Yeah.
And yeah, that's a big thing people miss on. It's like, well, yeah, you're already naturally good there. Why don't we enhance that even more? And then I can blast through that weak point, and then that weak point doesn't matter as much.
Right.
You just blow through it.
Write it out. Yeah. Yeah.
And then you're able to just kind of grind through that. So, and then for me right now, it's just talking to people in an older population or something that have a bunch of dings and dents. It's finding out what you can do that doesn't hurt. Because really the worst thing I can do, and I've tried it, I mean, I was better off at these last 3 meets. I just didn't bench. Because when I tried it, I like to go in every week and bench once or twice a week. All I did was hurt, and it's really hard to be strong when you hurt.
Yeah.
So basically, I didn't bench. I benched every 3 weeks or so. And, 3 weeks out from meet, I'd load up 315, make sure I can hit it for a few, and I'm like, I'm good. As long as I can do that. Basically, I don't want to do a meet and not bench 315 as a grown-ass man.
Yes.
That weighs
I understand.
260.
Right. I understand.
So I'd make sure I could still do that, and then I'd just see what's there that day. So, like my last meet, I benched 370, and I was like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I mean, it's just, ID your weakness and ID your strengths. If you have a strength, enhance that strength. It's something you're naturally good at, and that can usually get you through your weak areas.
Yeah, I like that someone built like yourself, as far as advice, they could actually work on the explosion with the big chest, and then separately look at the lockout. But those two things together should be able to bring up that distant third big lift.
Yeah, and it's the same with me in the squat. I mean, I just had to I was never good at it. I'm not really built to be good at it. What did I do? I really concentrated on it. For that lift, I put my strength, which is my deadlifting, on the back burner, because I knew it would be there. It's like, I don't need to worry about that. I know it's going to be there.
Yeah.
So I really just totally concentrated on my squat, and that's what brought it up. I put 99% of my energy in that, and all my pulls, and they still are done after. Like, I don't pull until I'm done squatting, and I'm already fatigued. And I know if I go in and, like, I'll go in today and squat 600 for 3 or something like that, and a bunch of other reps, and I know, okay, I've just done all that. If I pull 600, I'm good. I'm doing 600 in a very fatigued state.
Right. No, I get it.
So, but
okay. Performance-wise for me, performance in bodybuilding, it's a body composition is the point.
Yeah.
It's not performance. It's I mean, I was always reasonably good at what I would call, for me, heavy, but to you, like middle weight, higher rep type squats. I like to squat fairly deep. As I got older and stiffer, some of this changed, but 405, like there was a time where I could routinely get sets of 10 and 12 out of 405. To me, that's a lot.
Yeah.
I got a video of Rob filmed me doing 315 for a 20. That shit is brutal.
Oh, yeah.
It is brutal. And I didn't do that a lot. I don't want people to think I did that a lot. But that was one of the things performance-wise, because I was bottom heavy. We're back to that kind of structure thing. Mm-hmm. And, I think as far as my sport goes, this sounds kind of silly, but I've always gotten huge pumps in the gym. I don't know if I was born with more capillaries or what, but sometimes I feel like I look like I'm 20 pounds heavier, when I'm done with a chest and arm, like T-shirt workout or something like that. So that kind of stuff is fun. What I'm bad at, and this alludes to earlier, is I've never deadlifted. You're going to laugh. I think you know this, but I've never met the grown-ass man performance level. Like 315, 365, I've never tried to max in the deadlift, but when I was younger, as somebody interested in bodybuilding, I could never find the right day to do deadlifts, right? Like if my legs are wrecked because I squatted yesterday, I don't want to do deadlifts on back day. My legs are wrecked, and what is a deadlift? It doesn't fit neatly into a body part split like a squat or a bench does. Squatting and benching does. Like in both of our sports, that works. Deadlifts are about the movement. And, it's a leg and back movement. So do you put on leg day or back day? I could never find a good time for that. So my deadlift still sucks. I mean, at this point, I'm not trying to necessarily make it huge. But, yeah, I'd probably be hard-pressed to pull 315 off the ground. You've got women at your gym that probably deadlift more than that. Yeah. And I just I was always worried, A, where you put it, but also, B, and I know by today's thinking, people roll their eyes, but you're talking about like back in the 80s, I was always afraid deadlifts would give me a thick waist. That myth, which is funny because, I had like a 28, 29-inch waist. I'm like, what am I worried about? Yeah. But it kept me away from it long enough that I never built that. And you know what? It wasn't until the last round of my competitions, while we were recording this show, that I actually really built up my my traps by I did a lot of low rack pulls, but that became my solution. Not that bottom 6 inches off the ground, right? Because again, too much leg drive there, and my legs are wrecked. But low rack pulls, I thought this is the solution, and I really did. I should probably show pictures on our Facebook page, like how my upper back used to look, and then what the traps looked like after a year of heavy like low rack pulls. It's night and day. But anyway.
Well, I think for somebody that's physique goal oriented, that's all they need to do. You don't need to pull from the floor. But I mean, you were also battling. You talk about the head, scared of a thick waist, this and that.
Yeah. When I was young.
Deadlifts just have a bad name too, and they still do. Like, oh, they're horrible. They're gonna hurt you. And I mean, through all the schools I work with and everything, like that's the reason none of them do it. They're really hard to teach and they're dangerous. They're pretty damn easy, and like all these schools are doing cleans horribly, of course.
Right.
They'll try and teach them horrible cleans, thinking it's less complex than a deadlift. You're basically having somebody deadlift and throw a bar.
Yes, explosively, right?
And that's more complicated than picking something up. No, I don't think so. But it's definitely one of those things. But I mean, I don't think for your goals it wasn't needed. I mean, you can get the same job done with. You can get a better job done with other moves,
right?
Potentially.
Well, and I mean, I always liked stuff like barbell rows, reasonably heavy. Like I'd use 275 and do like low rep, just barbell rows in the middle of the floor. I mean, that's a pretty brutal, basic movement. It's not one of the big three powerlifting, lifts. But I think hopefully listeners are getting from us, the advice for this, right? Which is don't be a no deadlift schmuck earlier in your career like I did, because I probably would have had a bigger upper back. Because like you, I was always lat heavy. Even to this day, it's hard for me to find shirts that fit because the armholes always, there's not enough room there, and my lats get in the way. But traps wise, really should have hit those deadlifts earlier than I did.
Same thing with me. Like I probably should have concentrated on my squat long ago, and let my good deadlift just come along.
Yeah.
It's because it would have been better, but it's hard to work on what sucks. Honestly, squatting really heavy is really fucking hard for me. Yeah. Because I've got long ass legs. But I mean, it took me saying, "Hey, I'm going to do this," and now I love it. Of course I love it because I'm good at it.
And you know what? I think you learned, like when I watch you squat, you're rather plainer. In other words, your knees seem very wide. You try to get flat against the bar. You kind of snap your knees together. You don't, because of your long legs, it would be a mistake for you to accordion squat. You know what I'm talking about? And you don't do that. So you used your knowledge, I think, to, like you said, your legs aren't the biggest they've ever been, but your numbers are. And I think a lot of that is working the very specific muscle groups in the technique that you've landed on, to do that. Yeah. So
no, most definitely. Most definitely. It's just honing that down and finding out what feels right for me. So
yeah. Okay. I think we're going to table some of the other things. We'll probably do a part 2 of this. Again, what what we're good at, what we're bad at, how we know, and maybe some advice, that comes out of it. But I hope that was instructive for you guys as listeners. Like I said, a part 2 might be diet, recovery, and sleep. What we're good at and bad at in these things. But identifying these things in yourself is a huge deal, right? Because then you can decide, I'm working on a weak spot today, or, no, damn it, I'm rolling with my strength, and maybe it'll play to my advantage, like what Phil was saying with exploding out of the bottom of a bench, or that kind of stuff. So,
and I can't undervalue the whole find out if it's something you really care about, because there are a lot of people that I really need to get this up. Why? Because everybody says I should. Yeah, but do you want to? And if you don't, it's okay. It's really okay not
right.
to.
Yeah. No, that's good from a mindset. Like, people can tell, like, how different from our perspectives because of the sport that we were pursuing. You were okay with smaller arms, and I was okay with a weak ass deadlift. I mean, because
exactly.
So what?
Yeah.
So what?
But
all right, good stuff.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys.
All right, we'll see you next week, everybody. Hey, listeners, have you seen the store at IronRadio.org? There are 3 halls in the store, one for Phil, one for Fortress, and one for myself, Dr. Lowry, and they're thematic. So you can go into our Halls of Iron store and choose based on your goal. If you need something to learn or read or something nutritional, you can look in my store, Lonnie's store. If you want something about injury prevention or competition, then take a look at Phil's Hall of Iron. And if you want something about motivation or daily training, Fortress's Hall has what you're looking for. There are some fun, heroic descriptors as you browse through the store, so we try to make it a little more fun than the average boring online store. And whether you're a novice lifter or someone more experienced, you can take heart that you're not wasting your time. The things that we put in each Hall of Iron are actually based on our own recommendations. Protein powders that we know to be good, knee sleeves, wraps of some kind, things that Fortress uses in his own training. The stuff you see, is good. This way you don't waste time. So check out the Iron Radio store at ironradio.org and let us know what you think on the forums, and certainly you can request products and we will screen them before they go in. So thanks for listening. Iron Radio is accepting donations. If you like what we do, the professors, the scientists, the bodybuilding show promoters, the athletes themselves in powerlifting and bodybuilding, please consider making a donation or maybe buying something from the ironradio.org store. We also are accepting supporting members. So for $4 a month, which is frankly less than the bank sneaks out of your account in fees, you can step up and support a form of sort of public radio for the bodybuilding and powerlifting and strength community. The Iron Radio podcast and all of the audio on ironradio.org is for informational purposes only. If you're interested in starting a diet or exercise program, it's important to check with your physician. Also seek the help of registered dietitians, athletic trainers, and qualified exercise physiologists in order to make the progress that you need.